The laboratory hummed with sterile white lights, the air filled with the soft beeping of monitors. Elias Carter, human xenobiologist, took a deep breath as he skimmed through the latest batch of alien biological data. Just another quiet day, nothing out of the ordinary. The doors hissed open. A tall, silver-skinned alien woman stormed in, her dark eyes locked onto him like a missile. She moved with purpose, carrying a data pad and the kind of intensity that made Elias feel like he had just been drafted into war. "Human," she declared. "I need your expertise." Elias blinked. Excuse me?" She was already scanning him with something that looked way too much like a medical scanner and a weapon at the same time. "You are Elias Carter, human xenobiologist?" "Why, yeah. I am Leora, lead researcher in comparative anatomy. Your data has been insufficient. I require a live demonstration." Elias coughed, nearly choking on his own saliva. What?" Leora's expression was frustrated, as if she were dealing with a particularly dense student. "You are an expert in human biology, are you not?" "Yes, but—" "Then show me everything." His brain stopped working. Show her everything? Leora had already tapped her data pad, barking orders in a strange, clicking alien language. A few beeps later, Elias saw movement in the glass walls. 3 other aliens had gathered outside, watching expectantly. I think there's been some kind of mistake," Elias stammered. Leora tilted her head. "You are not a human?" "I mean I am." "Then the mistake is yours. Begin." A bead of sweat rolled down Elias's neck. "Begin what exactly?" She tapped on her pad. "The practical application of human physiology." His knees almost buckled. You're gonna have to be more specific." Leora sighed in exasperation. "Your race is fragile, yet it functions under extreme conditions. I have reviewed outdated files, but theory is meaningless without first-hand observation." Elias wiped a hand down his face. "Right. You're talking about human biology?" "Obviously. And you need a demonstration." "Yes." He took a step back. "Just to be clear." Leora took a step forward. "Yes? I am not stripping." Leora frowned, actually offended. "Why would you remove your coverings? That is an unnecessary step." Elias felt his soul leave his body for a second. "Then, what exactly are you asking me to do?" She lifted her pad, scrolling through disturbingly vague notes. "To begin, I require your insights on human endurance. How long can you maintain optimal function under stress? What is your recovery time? What stimuli enhance performance?" His brain short-circuited so hard he almost died on the spot. "Stimuli?" he repeated weakly. "Yes. What motivates a human to exert themselves beyond normal limits? I must understand your body's reactions in a controlled environment." Elias made a strangled noise in the back of his throat. Leora narrowed her eyes. "Do you lack confidence in your abilities?" His entire body went stiff. "Wait, what?" She leaned in. "Is this hesitation due to an inferiority complex? Are you suboptimal?" Elias nearly burst into flames. I mean, I'm plenty optimal. I just don't think you understand what you're asking." Leora exchanged a glance with the researchers outside, who began furiously taking notes. The tallest one nodded solemnly. "Humans require direct provocation before action," Leora hummed. "Fascinating." Elias raised his hands. "No, that's not." Leora suddenly turned toward the panel by the door. The lab lights dimmed. A screen projected several graphs. His own biometric data flashed onto it. Leora took a seat in front of him, her eyes expectant. "Now, human. Begin." Elias had never wanted to die more in his life. Elias stood there, staring at Leora, who sat with her data pad ready, her intense alien eyes studying him like he was a specimen trapped in a petri dish. Outside the glass, the research team remained perfectly still, waiting for him to comply. "Human," Leora said, her voice carrying a weight of impatience. Begin your demonstration. Elias swallowed hard. Okay, but you need to be more specific. Leora's brows furrowed. I have already outlined the parameters. A practical test of human endurance. A muscle twitched in his jaw. Endurance, in what? Leora tapped her fingers against the metal table. In every capacity. Elias nearly choked on air. Every capacity? She nodded, flipping to another screen. There are many reports detailing human stamina and adaptability, but no detailed breakdown of real-time performance under controlled conditions. My objective is to witness it firsthand. He threw his hands in the air. Stamina doing what? Leora tilted her head, confused. Sustained activity. He felt his knees start to buckle under the weight of the sheer insanity of this conversation. The research team outside exchanged looks, then one of them muttered. He is avoiding the challenge. Perhaps his species does not possess the fortitude claimed in previous reports. Leora sighed. Unfortunate. I had hoped for a more cooperative subject. Elias snapped out of his frozen panic. Hold on. I never said I wouldn't do it. I need clarification. What kind of test? Leora's gaze sharpened. You wish to establish dominance before engaging? His stomach plummeted into another dimension. What? Leora didn't blink. I understand. Competitive instincts drive human behavior. We will escalate accordingly. A deep, guttural alien command echoed from the intercom. The lights above flickered to a reddish hue, and a countdown appeared on the screen. Elias felt the ground tilt beneath him. What the hell did you just do? Leora sat back, completely composed. Initiated the endurance test. The doors slid open, revealing an enormous circular track. Elias stared at it, his brain desperately trying to reboot. Leora pointed at the track. Run. Excuse me? She tapped her screen again. I will monitor your physical output, breathing efficiency, and caloric burn. This will be cross-referenced with established xenobiology metrics. Begin. Elias let out a wheezy, strangled laugh. You want me to run? Leora's eyes narrowed. Are you not capable? He clenched his jaw. I am capable. Then begin. The researchers outside leaned forward in anticipation. One of them whispered something, and another one nodded. Perhaps his hesitation stems from the need for a proper challenge. Leora hummed. Yes. That would make sense. She turned back to Elias. Would you prefer a competitor? Elias felt like he was going to pass out. No. No competitor. I don't. Leora blinked. Then proceed. He ran a frustrated hand down his face, groaning as he stepped forward. The moment he did, Leora tapped a button, and a countdown started. 5. Elias looked around wildly. Wait, you're serious? 4. Leora raised a brow. Should I be concerned? Your species prides itself on superior physical ability. 3. The researchers had begun recording. 2. Elias resigned himself to his fate. 1. The track flashed green. Elias bolted. For 5 minutes, all he could hear was the sound of his own footsteps, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. His mind screamed, "This is just a treadmill test. Why am I panicking?" Leora watched, completely absorbed. Fascinating, your speed fluctuates in direct correlation with distress. Elias wheezed. Because I didn't expect this. She nodded, making notes. Does psychological arousal directly impact human stamina? Elias tripped. His knees hit the track, momentarily seeing his life flash before his eyes. Leora sighed. Perhaps your species is not as durable as I was led to believe. Elias slammed a fist against the floor. I am perfectly durable. Leora watched him struggle back up. Then why are you on the ground? He sucked in a deep breath, gritted his teeth, and forced himself to keep running. The moment he did, the research team broke into a hushed, intense discussion. Observe his renewed aggression. Perhaps the fall was a necessary stimulant. A primitive form of battle-initiated motivation? Elias forced a strained, high-pitched laugh. I hate my life. Liara simply made another note. Inconclusive response. Elias dragged himself off the track, panting like a dying animal. His legs felt like they had been set on fire. His lungs screamed for mercy, and the only thing keeping him upright was sheer human stubbornness. Liara observed him without a hint of sympathy. Interesting. You maintained motion despite clear signs of deterioration. Elias wheezed. That's called running. She nodded. But your output was inconsistent. Does your species require external stimuli to maintain performance? He wiped sweat off his forehead. No, my species requires a reason to run, and I didn't have one. Liara hummed. Motivation-dependent endurance, noted. Elias flopped onto a chair, his body still trembling. What kind of test was that? Liara scrolled through her data pad. Preliminary stamina assessment. Now we move to sensitivity thresholds. His entire body locked up. What? Liara walked toward him with clinical precision. A significant portion of your species' responses are tied to tactile stimulation. I must document points of heightened sensitivity. Elias shot out of the chair. No, you don't. She frowned. Resistance? Unusual. I'm not resisting. He lied, stepping backward. I just don't think that's necessary. Liara glanced at the research team. Record this. Subject exhibits reluctance to submit to testing. Possible aversion response? The tallest alien nodded, writing something down. Could be a dominance reflex. Elias choked. It's not. Liara ignored him, approaching with one hand extended. I will begin with light pressure. He nearly threw himself out of the room. Liara! Listen to me. This is. She poked his ribs. Elias yelled. The entire research team gasped. Liara's brows lifted in surprise. Unexpected reaction. Elias clutched his stomach, wheezing. I am ticklish. Liara scribbled furiously. A neurological vulnerability. Is this exploitable in conflict? He took a staggering step away. It's not a weakness, it's a nuisance. She tilted her head. Yet it completely disrupted your balance. The researchers nodded. Fascinating. A species-wide pressure sensitivity threshold? Elias fumed. No! Just stop touching me. Liara studied him. Would you prefer to conduct the experiment yourself? His brain short-circuited again. What? She extended her arms. Reciprocal analysis. You may assess my own sensitivity thresholds for comparison. Elias lost all ability to function. His soul left his body. The research team watched in eerie silence. Liara nodded encouragingly. Proceed. Elias let out a strangled noise. I'm not touching you. Liara sighed. Unfortunate. I had hoped for more cooperation. Elias collapsed back into the chair, covering his face. This is my nightmare. Liara simply made more notes. Human fragility confirmed. Liara stared at Elias, her pen hovering over her data pad as if he were a malfunctioning specimen in need of further study. The research team remained eerily quiet, waiting for him to make his next move. Elias refused to make a next move. Liara exhaled, the equivalent of an exasperated sigh. This is inefficient. Your reluctance to engage is impeding data collection. Elias massaged his temples. Liara, I'm not a lab rat. She tilted her head. Incorrect. You are a human. He groaned. That's not what never mind. Liara scrolled through her notes. Perhaps a different approach. If direct physical analysis is ineffective, I will evaluate stress-induced responses. Elias frowned. What does that mean? A light above him turned red. Liara nodded to the research team. Begin Phase 2. Elias immediately tensed. Phase 2 of what? A panel slid open in the ceiling. A sleek, metallic device with glowing blue sensors descended ominously. Elias pointed at it. What the hell is that? Leora didn't look up. Adaptive stimulation module. His stomach dropped. Adaptive, what? Leora finally met his eyes. It will apply variable stimuli to monitor human reflexes. Elias stood so fast his chair almost tipped over. You're gonna zap me with an alien cattle prod? Leora frowned. Cattle? No. It is finely calibrated. The machine whirred to life. Small, robotic arms extended outward, emitting a low, pulsing hum. Elias took 3 solid steps back. Leora, I swear. Proceed, she instructed. The device lunged. Elias barely dodged, tripping over his own feet in the process. Nope. Nope. We're not doing this. Leora tapped her pad. Evasive maneuvers initiated. Elias stumbled away as the robotic arms extended toward him. Turn it OFF. Leora watched closely. Heightened pulse, erratic movement. Noted. He dove behind a desk, breathing hard. Leora! Shut it down! The researchers leaned in. Increased vocal output under stress. Is this species dependent? Leora nodded. Possibly. More data required. Elias peeked out. The robot was recalibrating. He bolted for the door. Leora didn't even blink. Increase speed by 10%. The machine shot forward. Elias yelped. The researchers murmured excitedly. Observe! The enhanced stimulus produces greater output. Elias ducked, weaving through lab equipment. This isn't science, this is assault. Leora made another note. Human perception of controlled study, aggressive. Elias grabbed a chair, shoving it between himself and the robotic arms. I swear, if this thing touches me. Leora observed his posture. Instinctive barrier formation. Elias glared at her. You think? The robot lunged again. Elias yanked a panel off the wall and hurled it. The machine jerked sideways, sparking. Leora lifted a brow. Impressive. The device powered down. Elias collapsed onto the floor, gasping. I hate it here. Leora checked her data. Preliminary results. Survival instincts appear intact. Elias groaned. You think? Leora looked satisfied. I do. Now, on to the next phase. Elias nearly screamed. Elias lay on the cold lab floor, chest heaving, brain scrambling to process what had just happened. His entire body ached, not from injury, but from sheer psychological damage. Leora observed him with clinical detachment. Your stress levels appear elevated. Elias let out a hollow laugh. Gee, I wonder why. Leora ignored his sarcasm, tapping her data pad. This suggests heightened reactivity under perceived threat. Human endurance seems to increase in direct proportion to external stimuli. Elias propped himself up on his elbows. Yeah, it's called survival. She nodded. Then this aligns with preliminary findings. Your species relies on distress-induced adaptation. Elias rubbed his face. Leora, you chased me with a death robot. That's not adaptation, that's... He waved a hand vaguely. Torture. Leora made a note. Resistance to controlled variables. Noted. Elias let out a slow breath. Listen. Can we just stop with the insane tests? Maybe do something normal. Leora raised an eyebrow. Define normal. Elias waved a hand. I don't know, ask me questions, run a scan, let me sit down without fearing for my life. Leora considered this. Then, with zero warning, she grabbed his wrist. Elias immediately panicked. What are you doing? Leora tightened her grip, studying his forearm. Your dermal layer is thinner than anticipated. Elias tried to yank free. Yes, that's called skin. Leora pressed a thumb against his pulse. Increased heart rate. Because you're grabbing me. Leora hummed. It accelerates under minimal contact. Fascinating. Elias gritted his teeth. It's not fascinating, it's basic human biology. Leora ignored him, lifting his hand higher, examining the way his fingers curled. Elias fought the urge to yank his arm away. Leora! What are you doing? She rotated his wrist. Checking for joint flexibility. Elias stiffened. Why does that sound ominous? Leora looked up. Do you experience discomfort? He narrowed his eyes. That depends. Are you about to break my arm? Leora tilted her head. That would be counterproductive. Elias let out a relieved sigh. Then Leora pressed her thumb into a nerve cluster. Elias nearly hit the ceiling. Holy, what are you doing? Leora blinked. Checking for pain response. Elias yanked his arm back. That's not how you do it. She frowned. Your reaction was disproportionate. Because you just stabbed a pressure point. Leora made another note. Human nervous system appears excessively reactive to external touch. Elias groaned. I am one bad interaction away from losing my mind. Leora ignored him. We must move on to the next assessment. Elias flinched. Why do I feel like that's bad? Leora simply reached into her satchel and pulled out a small, glowing device. Elias stared at it. What is that? She turned it over in her hands. A biological augmentation stimulator. Elias took 2 steps back. Augmentation for what? Leora studied him. Your performance, of course. Elias felt his entire soul exit his body. He pointed at the device. That thing, that thing looks dangerous. Leora considered. Unlikely. It merely enhances existing biological function. Elias stared at her, horrified. I don't like how that sounds. Leora ignored his distress. Would you prefer a controlled microdose before full application? Elias threw his hands in the air. I would prefer to be left alone. Leora observed his genuine panic. Then, to his utter disbelief, she sighed. Very well. I will postpone augmentation trials. Elias nearly collapsed in relief. Then Leora tilted her head. However, we still have neuroresponse testing. Elias' relief died a slow, painful death. I hate everything. Leora tapped her data pad. Excellent. Then we begin immediately. Elias took a slow, steady breath, mentally preparing himself for whatever new torment Leora had planned. His legs still ached from the endurance test, his ribs still tingled from the sensitivity study, and now, judging by the way she was flipping through her data pad, things were about to get worse. Leora nodded, seemingly satisfied with whatever horrifying conclusion she'd reached. Now we shall proceed with neural stimulation trials. Elias froze. Neural what? Leora tapped her screen. You process external stimuli at high speeds. I must determine how quickly your brain adapts to varying conditions. Elias took a step back. Leora. What? Does that mean? She ignored him, pulling a small metallic headpiece from her satchel. It pulsed faintly, glowing in a way that made his survival instincts scream. Elias' hands shot up. Nope. We're not putting alien tech on my head. Leora didn't pause. The device will measure your neural response time. Elias backed into a desk. I don't want my neural anything measured. She tilted her head. Why? Is your cognitive function compromised? Elias groaned. My function is just fine. Then you should have no issue proving it. Before he could protest, she moved fast. One quick motion, and the headpiece latched onto his temples. Elias jerked in alarm. Oich, come on! A jolt ran through his brain. Elias' entire body locked up. A second later, his thoughts exploded into overdrive. The lab seemed too bright, too loud. His breathing sounded like a hurricane in his own ears. Leora observed him. Fascinating. Your system is highly receptive to low-voltage synaptic acceleration. Elias clutched the desk. Leora! Turn it off. She ignored him, adjusting the settings. The effects should stabilize momentarily. Elias' vision blurred. The air felt too heavy. Leora hummed. Processing speed has increased significantly. Interesting. Are you experiencing distress? Elias gritted his teeth. Yes. Leora tapped the pad. Yet your physical responses remain stable. Remarkable. Elias slammed his fist against the table. Turn it off. Leora blinked. Ah. You require a manual disengagement command. Elias braced himself. Whatever. Just shut it down. She flipped a switch. The headpiece powered down. Elias collapsed into a chair, panting. Leora nodded to herself. Cognitive amplification is highly effective. Elias rubbed his temples. I'm going to throw myself out of an airlock. Leora ignored his suffering. Now, I must test how external stimuli affect decision-making speed. Elias tilted his head back. Why do I feel like I'm gonna regret that sentence? Leora reached into her satchel again. Elias groaned. Leora, please. She pulled out a small black sphere. Elias stared at it. What is that? Leora turned it over in her hands. It is a high-speed projectile. Elias sat up so fast he nearly fell. I am not getting hit with a bullet. Leora raised a brow. Do not be dramatic. It is a soft impact simulation device. Elias pointed at the sphere. That's just a fancy way of saying you're going to throw something at me. Leora did not deny it. Elias buried his face in his hands. I hate this job. Leora activated the sphere. It hovered, pulsing softly. Elias eyed it warily. If that thing moves, I'm running. Leora adjusted her data pad. Then your reaction will be recorded. Elias sighed, bracing himself. I already know how this ends. The sphere shot toward him. Elias barely dodged. Leora, I swear. A second sphere launched. Elias yanked a chair in front of him. Stop trying to kill me. Leora watched with mild interest. Increased reflex speed. Noted. Elias narrowed his eyes. I will throw this chair at you. Leora didn't even flinch. Unnecessary. You have already confirmed human defensive instincts. The spheres deactivated. Elias collapsed back into his seat. Leora observed him. You performed well. Elias glared. I survived. There's a difference. Leora nodded, making notes. Good. Now we may proceed to the next assessment. Elias let out a slow, suffering-filled breath. I hate my life. Leora simply tapped her pad. Noted. Elias remained slumped in his chair, staring at the ceiling, debating whether it was possible to fake his own death to escape whatever was coming next. His body was exhausted, his brain felt like it had been thrown into a blender, and Leora was still standing there, perfectly composed, completely unfazed. She checked her data pad. Your cognitive reflexes are within expected thresholds. Now I require a demonstration of your biological recovery process. Elias blinked. My what? Leora gestured toward him. Your body has experienced prolonged exertion and external stressors. I must determine how quickly your physiology stabilizes. Elias rubbed his temples. You're saying you want to study how I calm down? Leora nodded. Correct. Do whatever is necessary to return to optimal function. Elias exhaled, dragging a hand down his face. Right. Fine. You want to see me relax? Watch closely. He leaned back in his chair, shut his eyes, and didn't move. Leora waited. The research team watched. The silence stretched. Elias cracked one eye open. What? Leora frowned. You are not engaging in any active recovery methods. Elias let out a tired laugh. Yeah, it's called resting. Humans do it all the time. Leora tilted her head. Passive recovery? Inefficient. Elias threw up his hands. I don't need a systematic recovery process, Leora. I just sit still, breathe, maybe nap, asterisk, and eventually I feel better, asterisk. Leora was already taking notes. Your species lacks a structured rejuvenation protocol. Fascinating. Elias groaned. That's a really fancy way of saying I lay down when I'm tired. Leora considered. I will require further observation. Elias froze. Hold on. What does that mean? Leora tapped a command on her data pad. The lights dimmed. A monitor on the wall switched to a biometric display. Elias' heart skipped a beat. Leora! What did you just do? Leora crossed her arms. You will enter a full-state human rest cycle. I will monitor your recovery in real time. Elias sat up. You want me to sleep? Here? With you watching? Asterisk asterisk. Leora nodded. Yes. For science. Elias gaped at her. That is the single most horrifying sentence I have ever heard in my life. Leora raised an eyebrow. Is your species incapable of sleeping under observation? Elias ran a hand through his hair. No, we can. It's just, you can't ask someone to sleep on command. That's not how it works. Leora frowned. Is there a required stimulus? Elias sighed. Sometimes people listen to calming sounds, maybe drink tea, or just wait until they're naturally tired. Leora nodded. Understood. Elias relaxed slightly. Good. So now that The walls suddenly emitted a soft, ambient hum. Elias sat up. Wait, what's that? Leora scrolled through her pad. I have activated a low-frequency sleep induction tone. Elias felt his entire body tense. What? The lights dimmed further. Leora gestured toward the seat. Rest now. I will begin monitoring. Elias stood up so fast the chair nearly fell over. Leora, I am not a lab rat. Leora sighed. Resistance detected. Elias glared. Because this is weird. Leora frowned. Then what stimulus do you require to enter sleep? Elias threw up his hands. I don't know, time? A normal bed? Not being observed like a specimen? Asterisk asterisk. Leora tapped her pad. Limited environmental control options. I will attempt alternative relaxation methods. Elias' stomach dropped. Leora gestured. The wall panels shifted, releasing a fine mist into the air. Elias coughed. Asterisk asterisk, what is that? Leora adjusted her screen. Low-dose neurorelaxant. It will optimize your transition into rest. Elias bolted for the door. I am not being gassed to sleep. Leora sighed again. Your resistance to optimized recovery methods is irrational. Elias pressed himself against the wall, panting. Leora, listen to me. Humans are not machines. You can't just flip a switch and expect us to power down. Leora studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she tapped her data pad and the mist ceased. Elias let out a long, relieved breath. Leora tapped her chin. Very well. I will postpone the study. Elias slumped. Asterisk asterisk thank you. Asterisk asterisk. Leora nodded. Instead, I will analyze how human rest cycles compare to species with similar metabolic rates. Elias exhaled. Great. Fantastic. Go study someone else. Leora tilted her head. I already have a comparison subject. Elias froze. Who? Leora sat down across from him, completely serious. Myself. Elias blinked. I'm sorry, what? Leora gestured toward the cushioned seat beside him. I will enter a rest state and you will provide comparative data. Asterisk asterisk you will observe my recovery process. Asterisk asterisk. Elias felt like his brain had imploded. You want me to watch you sleep? Leora nodded. Yes. For science. Elias rubbed his face. Leora. That's even worse. She frowned. Explain. Elias groaned. Asterisk asterisk I don't know. It just is. Asterisk asterisk. Leora tapped her fingers against the chair. Then what do you propose? Elias sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Let's just sit here for a minute. Quietly. No gas, no machines, no insane observation studies. Just quiet. Leora stared at him. Then, to his absolute shock, she nodded. Acceptable. Elias exhaled. Finally. Peace. Then Leora turned to him. Now, explain Netflix and chill. Elias let out a strangled scream. Elias stared at Leora, absolutely horrified. His brain short-circuited so violently that for a moment, he genuinely considered just shutting down entirely. Excuse me? Leora blinked at him, completely serious. Netflix and chill. This phrase appears repeatedly in human social interactions. I require clarification. Elias felt his soul leave his body. Leora. No. She frowned. That is not an explanation. Elias shook his head violently. Nope. Not happening. We are not having this conversation. Leora pulled up her data pad, scrolling through human cultural references. Netflix. A form of media consumption. Chill. A term denoting relaxation. The phrase is used in conjunction. Elias clapped his hands together. Stop. Just, ***, delete that entire train of thought. ***. Leora narrowed her eyes. You are avoiding the question. Why? Elias groaned. Because it's not scientific. It has nothing to do with physiology or endurance, or whatever insane tests you've been running all day. Leora tilted her head. Incorrect. If it is a widespread human activity, it contributes to behavioral analysis. Elias pressed his fingers against his temples. It's not an activity, Leora. It's a social thing. Leora raised an eyebrow. Clarify. Elias sighed so hard he nearly collapsed. It's a human dating euphemism. Leora stared at him, processing the information. Ah. A courtship ritual. Elias gritted his teeth. Not exactly. It's. He hesitated. It's just something people say when they don't actually mean they're watching Netflix. Leora frowned. Then why use the term? Elias let out a hollow laugh. Because humans are weird, okay? Sometimes we don't say what we mean. Leora's eyes narrowed as she processed his words. Deception-based invitation. Noted. Elias slapped his forehead. No. Not deception, just implied meaning. Leora typed something on her pad. This suggests human courtship relies on indirect communication patterns rather than direct verbal intent. Elias waved his arms wildly. Why are you making this sound scientific? Leora ignored him. You are an expert on human social behaviors. How frequently do you engage in Netflix and chill? Elias choked on air. The research team outside the glass immediately leaned in. Elias turned red. Hi, ***, what? Leora blinked. Your reaction suggests discomfort. Is this a private behavior? Elias wanted to die. Leora, I am not answering that question. Leora tapped her chin. Unfortunate. First-hand data would be optimal. Elias immediately held up both hands. Stop that sentence right there. Leora nodded to herself. Then I must rely on secondary sources. Elias was already shaking his head. Leora! I swear, if you try to bring this up with anyone else. Leora scrolled through her screen. There is significant data available in human entertainment archives. Elias went still. What kind of data? Leora tapped a button. The massive lab screen lit up. Elias saw the search bar. And the words, Netflix and chill, demonstrations. His soul left his body. No, 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 no. He lunged for the screen, slamming the console to shut it off. Leora frowned. Why are you preventing access to educational material? Elias panted. Because you're about to get a crash course in something you are not ready for. Leora considered. Then the phrase carries an adult connotation? Elias felt like the walls were closing in. Yes. Yes, now can we drop this before something irreversibly scarring happens? Leora studied him for a long moment. Human interactions are unnecessarily complicated. Elias ran a hand through his hair. Tell me about it. Leora nodded. Very well. We will proceed to a different experiment. Elias slumped, exhausted. Finally. Leora pulled up a new file. Explain human pair bonding traditions. Elias let out a silent scream.